Good afternoon. Welcome to Grand Rounds today. As always, please remember to sign the attendance record at the back of the auditorium and also fill out the program evaluation, and please give us any ideas in regards to future topics or future speakers. Today I have the pleasure of introducing co-presenters. We have Christine Hradek and Nicole Leidal. They are both from the Iowa State Extension Service, and they have kindly accepted our invitation today to review with us some programs that are available for individuals who are faced with the issue of food insecurity. And please join me in welcoming Christine and Nicole.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Can you give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay? All right, thank you very much. So thank you for that warm welcome. My name is Christine Hradek, and I am the state coordinator for nutrition education programs at Iowa State University Extension and Outreach that are aimed at families with low income. And Nicole is my colleague from the Story County office. If you didn't know, Iowa State University Extension and Outreach has an office in every county, and we actually have 2 offices in Pottawatomie County. So there are 100 offices across the state that make up our 99 county campus. And we chose to have Nicole with us today so that you'd have a local face to be able to connect with as we talk about our programs. All right, so a little bit about our goal. Our goal is to help Iowans with low income make the healthiest choices possible with their limited budgets. So most of our participants in our programs are participants in the Food Assistance Program or the WIC program, likely participants in Medicaid, families who are functioning at, below, or near the federal poverty level. And our hope today is for you to see us as a partner in helping your patients reach healthy lifestyle changes that may benefit their health. So I'm going to walk you through some of the offerings that we have and hope to give you enough information for you to make connections that you might be able to use in your own practice. We do have time for questions at the end of the presentation, but if you happen to have something burning come up, feel free to raise your hand. I'd be happy to stop and answer a question. So a little bit about our agenda for today. I'm going to share a bit about just the reality of food insecurity in the state of Iowa and in Story County. I'll walk you through the nutrition education programs that we offer through Extension and Outreach, and I'll also acquaint you with some of our online resources. So we know there are some, clients, patients, Iowans who we will probably never be able to work with face-to-face, and so that's why we have a pretty robust online presence to be able to have resources for those folks too, whether they're interested in coming to education opportunities or not. So a little bit about hunger in Iowa. Hunger affects 1 in 8 Iowans. And in some counties, the number is as high as 1 in 5. So if you think about Polk County, for example, and you do a subset of that population only looking at children, the food insecurity rate is 1 in 5. And these data use a definition of food insecurity that looks at the entire year. So 1 in 5 children in Polk County is food insecure at some point in a given year. And the most likely point in the year when that would happen is going to be in the summer when they're not attending school, may not have access to meals that are typically provided at school. And so then this also translates to just shy of about 400,000 people, and about a third of that is children. So I'd like to do one of these polling questions if you happen to have a clicker in front of you. The statewide poverty rate and presumed food insecurity rate is about 12%. So I'd like you to estimate what percent of the Story County population is food insecure. And please note that we are taking into account students at Iowa State. So this is not just permanent residents of Story County, but this is our campus as well. So take a second to enter your polling guesses. Okay, and we'll see what we've got. Okay, so we have the majority thinking we're at about 18%, and just behind that is 12%, so on par with the rest of the state. So the actual correct answer here is 22%. If we take into account the campus and the county as a whole, 22% is our rate of food insecurity at some point throughout the year. And you may not be aware that Iowa State actually has a food pantry on campus for students who may need it. It's called the SHOP, S-H-O-P, which stands for Students Helping Our Peers. It's entirely student-run, but it's a remarkably professional outfit considering that it is completely student volunteer-run. A student who used to work in our office actually coordinated the pantry, and it really is quite impressive. So I also put some data on here for Hardin and Boone counties just to give you a point of comparison. So why is food insecurity so important in a healthcare environment? Of course, we know we have an epidemic of obesity in the United States, and counterintuitively, food insecurity and obesity are strange bedfellows. They tend to hang together. It's quite possible for Americans to be overfed and undernourished, which I'm assuming is probably not news to most of you. So our focus is not on access to adequate calories. Most Iowans have access to adequate calories. It's access to the calories needed for good health. So if my primary access point for food is a food pantry, the food available at that food pantry is really critical for my own personal health. So we focus on calories for good health, not just calories to sustain life. And of course, chronic disease and poverty are also pretty seriously intertwined. People in poverty are more vulnerable to chronic disease because of less access to health care, less access to preventive care, but also increased exposure to risk. And of course, the reverse can be true, where chronic disease can cause poverty due to job loss, healthcare costs, self-medication, and kind of that vicious cycle. And then I pulled a little bit of data, too, to just look at food insecurity specifically in a healthcare context, and found that food insecurity is associated with significantly more emergency room visits, hospitalizations, days hospitalized, and adjustment, even after adjustment for demographics, education, income, health insurance, all of the kinds of things you might expect to influence data like this. So food insecurity and health are deeply, deeply connected, even though in Iowa, food insecurity is not going to look like the hunger you might expect to see from another country. So Iowa State approaches this problem through a combined effort of direct education through nutrition and lifestyle education opportunities for Iowans, as well as healthy food access initiatives, and making resources as widely available as we can. Print resources, but perhaps more importantly, our online resources. We're not going to speak a whole lot today about our healthy food access program, which is called Growing Together Iowa, that aims at getting more produce into food pantries. I'd be happy to share more information about that with anyone who's interested. The Growing Together Iowa teams in the last year donated about 123,000 pounds of fruits and vegetables to Iowa's food pantries, which equates to nearly 400,000 servings, so quite a bit of impact there. Our focus today is on the direct education piece of this equation, but ultimately it all combines together to make healthy choices easier for the families that we aim to serve. So I have another polling question that I would ask you to take a look at. So do you currently screen patients for food insecurity? And I know we have all different kinds of providers in the room, and so this question may make sense for some and not make sense for others, depending on the kind of work that you do. But do you currently screen patients for food insecurity? And you can see there's an option for, yes, I do so formally, yes, but I do it informally, it's more a conversation, and then no or sometimes. So I'll give you a second to answer that one. Okay. Let's see if it goes. There it goes. Okay. So I see a small number that do so informally, a lot that say no, and then some that say sometimes, perhaps dependent on the situation or, you know, the patient's profile. So screening for food insecurity is something that, obviously would have an influence on the kind of guidance that we give someone about behavior changes that might help their health, to know how feasible those changes would be. So, people in positions like mine obviously encourage screening for food insecurity because it could be a really important barrier that a patient is dealing with. But we also know that there are probably a million things people could ask you to screen for that would have an influence on your patient. So it was interesting to me to see your responses to this. Okay, so one more poll. In the last month, have you seen a patient who would benefit from any of the things on this list? And keep in mind that there is the option of choosing all of the above. So improved nutrition habits, increased physical activity, improved cooking skills, and budgeting food dollars, or all of the above. Okay, let's see what we've got. Come on, thingy. There it goes. Okay, so 90% of us say all of the above. These are really common concerns that not just Iowans, but Americans have, regardless really of their health status. We could all benefit from doing better with these things. So this confirms for me that this is something that you all are seeing on a regular basis. Okay, so let's get into a little bit about the offerings that we have through ISU Extension and Outreach that could benefit Story County residents or people living in bordering counties that seek services in Story County. So we're going to start with Buy, Eat, Live Healthy, which is a nutrition education program that we've been offering for quite a few years through the Extension Service. It's a direct face-to-face nutrition education program for families with low income who are raising children. So we define family however the family defines it. Some of our participants are grandparents who are raising their grandchildren. Some are, young single mothers or single fathers. Some are married couples. It's an 8-lesson series. We provide it in 14 counties across the state, including Story County. And it's really basic nutrition education and skill practice. Skills like cooking, planning a meal, planning a menu, planning a grocery list, and shopping deliberately with some skills in mind. It is not health counseling. It is not designed to respond to any particular condition or disease state. So we would not provide a different program, for example, if someone told us, well, I have diabetes. So the program we offer would be the same. It's going to be basic nutrition education and skill practice. We do have dietitians on staff. So when complex questions arise or somebody expresses a concern, our go-to response is going to be, you should talk with your healthcare provider, but we can also share that question with the dietitians that work on our staff so the educator feels prepared for that response. So a little bit about who our participants tend to be. They have a child, age 18 or younger. They are at or below 185% of the federal poverty level. Now, people don't just walk around knowing if they're at or below 185% of the federal poverty level. So we use proxies to determine this. So if someone participates in SNAP or food stamps, food assistance, or if someone participates in the WIC program, or if someone is eligible for free meals at school, they're eligible for our program. So it's usually those proxies that help us determine eligibility. Most of our participants in the state of Iowa are SNAP participants, which in Iowa is known as food assistants. Many are single mothers. A much higher proportion of our participants are single mothers compared to the Iowa population as a whole. And many are new to the United States, particularly here in Story County. Among the folks who Nicole works with, we have a lot of families living here while one student is studying at Iowa State and another is, caring for a small child or two. So not only operating on a very limited budget, but doing so in a country that is not familiar to them. So in those circumstances, Nicole's kind of coaching on how to eat healthfully in the American food system is very helpful. So the venues where we can teach one-on-one or preferably in small groups. It's a richer experience for the participant if it's done in a group. We hold our lessons wherever our participants want them to be. So community centers, churches, food pantries, shelters, resettlement agencies, schools. Nicole's going to share a list of her partners here in Story County to hopefully make some connections for all of you in a few minutes. And we can also serve people in bordering counties. So I'm sure there's people from bordering counties who seek services here. As long as they come to Story County for lessons, we're happy to serve them here. And we do also have this same program in Marshall County and in Polk County as well. So up until this point, I've been talking about our program called Buy, Eat, Live Healthy, which is 8 lessons long. It's a pretty long commitment for a family to go through Buy, Eat, Live Healthy. We do have a second option. This is called Plan, Shop, Save, and Cook. It's a 4-lesson series, so it's less intensive than Buy, Eat, Live Healthy, and it's designed for a wider audience. If you remember when I mentioned at the beginning of Buy, Eat, Live Healthy that we were focused on people raising children, we were focusing on families. Plan, Shop, Save, and Cook is for any eligible adult. So it could be an older adult, it could be a younger single person, it can be people who are not parenting, people living alone, much wider audience of people to serve with Plan, Shop, Save, and Cook. And it doesn't include information on child feeding and establishing healthy habits with children because it's not really intended for parents. And it focuses much more on skills, on practical skills and habits than it does on the why, the nutrition education background that we include in Buy, Eat, Live Healthy. So our educators for both of these programs are peer educators. They are relatable, likable, and flexible. We know that we are not the #1 priority for any of the people who seek services in our programs. And so we try to flex to meet their needs and become part of their lives in a convenient way during the time that they're working with us. So we have about 25 educators across the state that do this work. And some of them are even graduates of our program, which we're really excited when we have a graduate of the program that then applies for a position working with us. That's always really fun. So some of the habits that we address, my hope is that some of these resonate with you as things that would be helpful to your patients. Fruit and vegetable intake, that's very high on the list. We know that Iowa is just about last in terms of fruit and vegetable intake in the United States, so we're working really hard on that. Calcium intake, be that through dairy products or other calcium-rich foods. Whole grain intake, food budget management, so things like meal planning, comparing prices, shopping with a grocery list, shopping very deliberately. Child feeding, daily physical activity, easy ways to make physical activity part of your life. Food safety, and then cooking at home. These are some of the really high priority habits for us. And then our methods. So what do these classes look like in terms of the experience for the participant? We do a lot of short-term goal setting. We generally meet with our participants once per week, and we try to set a goal at every lesson that is something I can accomplish in the next week. I don't need a year to do this. I don't need a month to do it, but I'm going to eat a vegetable for lunch 3 times this week, and I'm going to report back at next week's lesson about how I did. And so we count on those goals kind of adding up over the course of the duration of the series to some lasting behavior changes. We also do physical activity at most of our lessons. We engage the participants in physical activity as part of the lesson and give them resources to be able to do that activity at home on their own. And of course, hands-on work with food preparation, meal planning, and shopping skills. And this is often the favorite part of the lessons for our participants. For some of them, it's brand new. We have a lot of participants that come to our classes who are a little hedgy at the beginning about how uncomfortable they are in a kitchen. If they grew up in a house that didn't cook, and now they find themselves, raising children on a very limited income, it's very difficult to eat healthy on a tight budget if you're always buying food that's partially prepared for you. And so building up those cooking skills and getting some confidence in the kitchen can go a long way to saving money on your food budget while still being able to make really healthy choices. We also provide some lesson enhancements, which these I'd say are another kind of favorite among participants. We give out some very small items that make practicing these behaviors at home a little bit easier. So we have a cookbook that folks get at the end of the series when they graduate. We also have a calendar that we brought copies of to share with you all that has a recipe for every month and recommendations for making healthy choices and tracking physical activity minutes and that sort of thing. And then just really practical things like a cutting mat, a produce scrubbing brush, measuring cups, measuring spoons, things that if you have not really in your life cooked, you might not have in your kitchen. And most importantly, these programs work. So I'm now going to move into sharing some data with you about outcomes from our most recently finished year. So we use two evaluation tools in our programs. One is a 24-hour dietary recall, where people try to think back over the last 24 hours and capture everything that they've eaten. We administer that at pre and post. And then we also have a food and activity questionnaire that looks more at habits over time, since the 24-hour dietary recall is really just a snapshot in time. And you never know when we're going to catch one of our participants the day after their child's birthday and all they ate the entire day was pizza and cake. That's going to kind of negate the utility of the 24-hour dietary recall. But the questionnaire captures habits over time, which is more helpful. So at post-test among our program graduates, 94% have improved dietary habits. 83% reported being more physically active, and 78% had improved their food safety practices. At post-test, also among program graduates, 57% had reduced their consumption of SOFAs, solid fats and added sugars, which we kind of look at this as a little bit of a proxy for packaged food, right? A lot of our solid fats and added sugars comes from the products that we buy instead of cooking from ingredients in their whole form. 96% ate more closely to the dietary guidelines, and 49% were more food secure. Now, that number to me is really compelling because for most of our participants, nothing about their income has changed. Right? They don't suddenly have more money for food or more benefits or anything like that. But their ability to manage the benefits and the money that they do have has come a long way. And so they are more food secure. They're less likely to run out of food by the end of the month. And 80% had improved their food resource management practices. So things like shopping from a grocery list, having a meal plan. Okay, we're now going to turn it over to Nicole, and she's going to share a success story from here in Story County, as well as make some kind of local connections for you that hopefully will have some relevance as you think about your own patients.
All right, can everyone hear me? Okay, my name is Nicole Leidal, as Christine mentioned. I am one of the Buy, Eat, Live Healthy educators. So I actually teach both of the programs Christine was just discussing. So before I get into some insights and behavior changes I've seen in the program, I wanted to share with you a success story from one of the participants. So I've been with the program for the last 4 years. So as Christine mentioned, a lot of the families I work with have not always lived in the United States. A lot of times I see a spouse is in college and they're working on a master's or a PhD. So the participant, I'm just going to call her Mary. Her spouse was working on his master's, and she was the mother of a 4-year-old daughter. So when she moved here, she was not very familiar with a lot of the food products at the grocery store. So she was very excited about learning some new healthy recipes that she could share with her family, along with using some new cooking utensils. So one new cooking utensil that she had never used was actually a can opener. So during one of the lessons, we practiced using a can opener, and she's actually really excited to share that with her family. But other things she was looking forward to was learning more about canned food. She was not very familiar with canned food, and just some healthier snacks she could share with her daughter. So her daughter liked a lot of sugary foods, like most kids. So during the program, we discussed healthier snack options and how too much sugar could lead to some health issues. One of the recipes we made was called Hurry Up Baked Apples, which is on our Spend Smart, Eat Smart website, which Christine will talk about here shortly. She thought that was a really good one to share with her daughter. Another item we talked about was canned items and how we could save money while at the store. We just mentioned, making sure to wash off those items to get rid of any extra juices or the extra sodium that might be on those produce. She was a great participant throughout the whole program. She'd informed me of a lot of changes her family was making throughout the program. So one thing she had mentioned was a lot of times her family will eat white rice during a lot of their meals. So one change she made was adding brown rice to make sure they were getting a whole grain. So I'm confident she learned a lot of new information on eating healthier and just some healthier snacking habits for her family. Some other insights or behavior changes I've seen throughout the program, or participants will come and tell me they get very excited throughout the program when they make a change, is adding whole grains into their meals. So like I said, try the brown rice, or maybe that's whole grain bread. Learning how to read and understand food labels. That tends to be a big one with a lot of families I work with. They don't know what to look for on labels. Switching from soda to water. Try new foods, new recipes. So every time I meet with participants, we either try or we make something new, either a meal or a snack, or there's a food demonstration. Choose milk that matches their calorie and fat needs. Learn how to save money when shopping. So we talk about ways to save money and just meal planning. Just felt more confident about cooking healthy meals for their family, adding more fruits and vegetables. And then also during the lessons, we do activity with them as well. So just being more active. So this is just a list of some of my primary partners for Story County. So I work with some food pantries you might have heard of here, Salvation Army, Bethesda Food Pantry, some churches, Memorial Lutheran Church here in Ames, North Minister Presbyterian Church. Mary Greeley, actually, I will be teaching a class here in May. People's Place, if you're not familiar, they just provide support and resources for parents of young children. Baby Bump and Beyond, which was formerly known as Stork's Nest. Their incentive-based program. They offer educational-related classes to parenting, pregnant, and infant care, United Way of Story County, and primary health care. So some referral methods, and we do have all these downstairs and upstairs as well, but we have brochures, so provide information to participants. On our brochures, it talks about the program. There's a little area they could fill out their information, as well as a free recipe, skillet lasagna on those. Complete referral forms and sent via email. So like I said, we have those as well. Those can be sent to me in the mail to the Story County office, or they can just be scanned and sent to me via email. And give a prescription. So obviously this isn't a formal prescription, and we don't have any forms right now for this, but this could be just a recommendation for the program. If you have someone that just needs to learn more about healthier lifestyles, just recommending the program to them. And then this is my contact information. I do have contact cards down here as well. This just lists the office number, and then I am in the Story County office, which is in Nevada.
All right. Am I back on? Yes? Okay. All right. Thank you, Nicole. So hopefully you feel like you have an understanding of our direct service programs. We're happy to answer any questions that you might have about those as we come toward the end of the presentation. But we also wanted to share our online face, which is called Spend Smart, Eat Smart. So we have resources down here and then also at the top that can help you get connected with Spend Smart, Eat Smart. It is a suite of online resources that includes a website, a weekly blog that comes out every Monday, social media posts on the 3 platforms that you see here, as well as an app for iOS and Android devices. The app is free if you want to go in and download it. And Spend Smart, Eat Smart was really developed back about about 12 years ago in response to the recession in the United States. It was created as a way for Extension to be able to get money management, food budget management, food insecurity resources out to the larger population of the state whom we may never see face to face in one of our offices. And so it has since kind of evolved into what it is today. But it has a lot of recipes, how-to videos, everything from how to clean and break down a head of broccoli to how to make a meal in a slow cooker, or how to organize your refrigerator so you don't end up wasting food, where different things should be stored in the refrigerator, and how to package food safely for leftovers. So there's a huge variety of information on Spend Smart, Eat Smart. But just like our direct education programs, it is all designed to benefit families who might have few resources but trying to make healthy choices despite that. So though it's designed for those families, it really is appropriate for any consumer. So if you want to pull out your device and pull up the website and poke around as I speak, you're certainly welcome to. This is the website here. It's just spendsmart.extension.iastate.edu. And our app is available on either Google Play or the Apple App Store, whichever you happen to use. So a little bit about our content that we have posted on Spend Smart, Eat Smart. It's research-based content. So everything that we share through ISU Extension and Outreach is research-based information. It's designed to be accessible and actionable for people with limited resources. And it really is basic nutrition information for the average individual. So just like with our direct education programs, it's not going to be health counseling for someone with a particular condition. It's going to be nutrition information for the general population. And just like with our direct education programs, we have dietitians on staff to respond to questions that come in through the website. And we do occasionally get questions through kind of the contact us portion of our website with questions about themselves personally or questions about how to get connected with resources. So here is just a visual of what we have available through Spend Smart, Eat Smart. We have multiple tabs on the website, which I'm not going to pull up and show to you today because I didn't think we'd have time to really dig in there, but I'd encourage you to take a look for yourselves. We have over 150 recipes that are not only tested in their development for being tasty and easy to make, but they also have nutrition analysis that meets our Iowa State guidelines for recipe development, but also cost analysis. So in looking at the recipe, I can see if this is 80 cents a serving or $1.80 per serving. So if I'm trying to make a decision about, a meal that I'm going to make for 8 family members that are coming to town, price might be something I'm trying, to factor in there. And this way the recipe tells you which recipe is more expensive. And generally we use prices at Hy-Vee to figure out what our prices are going to be, because our food costs in Iowa are generally a little bit lower than the national average, but Hy-Vee tends to be a little bit higher than some other stores in our area. So we use our Hy-Vee prices to try to be as close to national averages as we can be, since we know people that use Spend Smart, Eat Smart are not all in Iowa. There are other extension services across the state in other states that use Spend Smart, Eat Smart as their primary consumer face for these issues as well. So some other resources that you'll find on Spend Smart, Eat Smart, we've mentioned videos. So we have how-to videos from everything from produce preparation to preparing a recipe or practicing food safety in your kitchen. We also have some at-home workouts posted on Spend Smart, Eat Smart that are led by our staff here at Iowa State. And there's a strength workout as well as a cardio workout. They're short, they're beginner level, but they're also kind of staged. There's someone doing an easier accommodation and someone doing a little bit more difficult to just help people get started with being active at home without having to go to a place that is strange to you or invest any money into the process. So our videos are another really kind of exciting tool that we have on the site. And then we have a collection of other things that are designed for a specific audience. So if you go to the cook section of our website, there is a collection that we call Produce Basics and a collection called Pantry Basics. And these are just info sheets that are meant to show people how to use some products that we may be encouraging you to eat. So the Produce Basics are all fresh produce items. So if I, for example, have only ever eaten melon that's already cut up for me, the idea of buying the whole melon, which is what Nicole would encourage me to do instead of buying it already cut up, means I've got to figure out how I'm going to cut up this melon and turn it into what I'm used to eating. So our Produce Basics show people how to clean, store, and prepare different fresh produce items. And then our Pantry Basics show you how to use foods that are often available in pantry and give ideas for how to use those. So it could be things like whole grain pasta, whole wheat tortillas, ideas for how to incorporate those into your meal. And we call those Pantry Basics or Pantry Picks because they are things that are commonly available in your pantry, but they're also things that our partners at food pantries have asked us to have info sheets on because they tend to get a lot of these items at food pantries and people tend to hesitate to take them because they're not sure how to use that. You know, I want the regular spaghetti. I don't want the whole wheat spaghetti because I don't know how to use the whole wheat spaghetti. So we kind of use them for dual purposes there. And then the last piece I wanted to mention is our grocery budget calculator, which allows you to go into this calculator, share some information about the makeup of your family, and it will then spit out what the low-cost food plan from USDA would suggest your family needs to spend on groceries each week. And you can then determine, so do I usually spend more than that, less than that, or about that amount? And if I say, well, I usually spend a lot more than that, it's then going to provide you with some recommendations and tools for getting your grocery budget down and saving money at the store. If I say that I spend less than that, it's going to connect me with some food assistance resources because chances are, if you're not spending as much money as the low-cost food plan says should be spent on food, you're probably making some compromises in your diet that are compromising your health. Okay, and so lastly, I wanted to mention our app. We have cards that look just like what's on the screen here that are all about our app, which has some content that is the same as our website. So for example, you can find our videos and recipes on the app, but it also has everything you would want to have in your hand at the grocery store. So when you're shopping and you just need something, on the go, the app is really meant to be that. And one feature it has that is unique from the website is it has a unit price calculator in it. So I don't have to be able to do any math to make some unit price decisions. So let's say I am looking at cereal, for example. I'm in the cereal aisle and I see that there is a box of cereal that is like Cheerios and it is 12 ounces for $3.49. And I see there's a bag of cereal down below it that says it's $6 for 2 pounds. That's some math I've got to be able to do, right? To figure out which one of those is the better deal. I've got to be able to equate ounces to pounds, and then I've got to be able to do that division to figure out which one is the better buy. Now, if I'm lucky, maybe the store has put it on the tag, but all of our stores don't do that. So you can enter that information into our grocery budget calculator, and it will tell you which one is the better deal. And it will convert across the units for you from ounces to pounds, which is really nice. And then a second feature of the app that we don't have on the website is you can mark recipes as your favorite. So then they're really quick for you to search when you want to be able to find recipes you've made before that are your favorites that you want to find fast again. So our audience for Spend Smart, Eat Smart is primarily the same folks who we work with in our direct education program. The content is designed for that group. We write at a reading level that is meant for the same group that we, teach in our direct education. It's a great way for us to keep in touch with our graduates. When Nicole works with her clients, she connects all of them with Spend Smart, Eat Smart before they graduate from the program, so they have a continued connection to trusted nutrition information, because there's a lot of nonsense on the internet about nutrition. And so we really want people to, feel like they've got a resource they can trust. But as I said, it's appropriate for all consumers. It's not really super narrow only for that audience. And then, of course, our secondary audience is professionals. It's, people in the healthcare field, dietitians, nutrition educators. Nicole's got counterparts all over the country that do this kind of work, and we love to hear about them using it. We hear occasionally from teachers who teach family consumer science about how they use it in their classes. So that's always really exciting for us. So some things you don't see if you open up the site and look around. It meets a AA accessibility standard, which means it works really well with a screen reader. So if someone has vision impairment, it will work fine for them. It also has color and contrast that is appropriate for people with color blindness. It also will work with automatic live translation to whatever language someone has their browser set to. So if I search the web in Spanish and my browser set to Spanish, Spend Smart, Eat Smart will show in Spanish. That is only the website. It doesn't work on the app, but on the website, it can translate to whatever language someone has their browser set to. So now we'd like to move into some next steps for all of you. Our hope is that you will visit with me or visit with Nicole here toward the end if you'd like to receive some additional information, that you'll pick up some of the things that we have available here to help connect your patients with our programs. We've got referral pieces and flyers and information about the app and website. And we'd ask you to take a look at Spend Smart, Eat Smart for yourselves and see if there might be some things in it that would be useful for you with your patients. And of course, contact Nicole. She's got her contact information down here also to, give you a chance to be able to reach out to her after the fact. So now we'd like to move into any questions you might have. Do we need a microphone? Oh, there we go. Okay.
Sorry, I have a bunch of questions.
Sure.
Really good talk. First of all, the farmers markets obviously are good for 3 months of the year in Iowa, but can you tell me, relatively speaking, are they more expensive than stores, and how many counties in Iowa actually have farmers markets? I have some more questions too.
Yes.
So.
Great question. So I think pretty much every county in Iowa has a farmer's market. There may be some exceptions to that. And the question about are foods more or less expensive, there's kind of two sides to that. So often produce is a little bit more expensive at the farmer's market, though it might be slower to perish. It might be less likely that some of it ends up in the garbage. So you balance out, is it more expensive or less expensive? Another thing that's important to know is that in Iowa, a lot of farmers markets accept WIC and SNAP benefits at the market. So people who are operating with very limited income often have those benefits, and we really try to increase their awareness that those benefits can be used at farmers markets and encourage vendors that accept them to be really public about it. So it's clear to me as a shopper, if I'm shopping with SNAP benefits, that I don't have to wonder and question if I try to use my SNAP card, is the person gonna, decline it? Because there's kind of some stigma with that. So we really do encourage our participants to use those benefits at farmers markets if they have them.
So my next question is about food deserts. I saw where a Hy-Vee had bought 6 stores in Northeast Iowa, and they're advertising that these are fresh outlets.
Yeah.
And so is this a remedy to help these food deserts get more fresh produce, or how is the strategy a good one to try to get better foods to people in rural Iowa?
That's probably a little bit over my head. I would say I could see there being benefits to having grocery stores in these areas where we have a lot of communities in Iowa where the only food outlet is like a Casey's or a Come and Go. And so having a place like a Fairway or a Hy-Vee move into those communities would be very beneficial. I don't know enough about those Hy-Vee stores to know how much of a solution they would be. But I do know that food deserts are a significant problem in Iowa. And when we think about the participants who we work with that may live in more outlying areas in the counties, not in Nevada or in Ames, oftentimes their access points for food are so different than what we might think of as normal that some of our advice then really has to be adjusted if my main access point for food is a gas station. Yeah.
So I just got one more question. This is a little bit of a comment too, but 40 years ago, there were no cell phones. 40 years ago, there was no cable television. 40 years ago, there was no internet access. How much of the average Iowa budget goes to those three items compared to the budget for food?
I don't know the answer to that question, but it's certainly a good point that we have all kinds of expenses that people consider kind of work a day now that we didn't have a generation ago, for sure. Yes?
You said that 22% of Story County are food insecure. I wasn't quite sure how you define or how you, what do you mean by that?
Yep. So the definition we use for food insecure with that data point is 22% of the county would not have access to a continuous supply of food to make up a healthy diet throughout the calendar year. So it could be there's a particular season where they are shorter on food. For a lot of families, it's summer. But at some point in the year, they do not have access to adequate food to make up a healthy diet.
Was there a particular questionnaire you
Yeah, so we use 2 food security screener questions. There is a long form, there's also a short form. We ask the question, how often did you eat less so that there was enough food for your family? And we ask another question about running out of food before the end of the month and not having money to buy more.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then have major stores like Hy-Vee or Fairway, have they been willing participants? They weren't listed on your list of, what did they do with produce that is about to expire?
Yes, excellent question. So our grocery stores in Iowa generally do a pretty good job of doing what we call food rescue. So when something is about to go past its date, having the food bank come and take it. Pretty much every Hy-Vee store participates in that. Most Fairways do. The challenge is if they could give the food bank even 1 or 2 more days. Often they don't let the produce go until nobody would want to eat it. So if your shoppers at the store aren't going to want to take it, neither is somebody, shopping at the food pantry if it's all mushy and shriveled. So that's one thing we try to push for is just a little bit more generous timeline on that produce. But most of our grocery stores do a really good job of donating things that are about to perish. One thing that we really try to advocate for is that some stores, like Hy-Vee as an example, have these big, beautiful, like bakeries, for example, that have tons of fresh baked bread. And of course, when you want it, it's lovely to know that it's there and you can just go and buy it any day and it will have been baked that day. But at the end of the day, they don't sell that bread. It all has to go. And so a lot of that also gets sent to the food pantries, that's not what food pantries need. So we would rather kind of address that further upstream and prevent that waste from the get-go and not produce so much of that, and kind of shift that giving more toward the produce, meat, that sort of thing. And we also try to just also espouse this idea of not using food as decoration. So having food all over the salad bar and that sort of thing that is meant to look really pretty, but ultimately is going to get thrown out. Once it's been put out somewhere like a salad or fruit bar, it can't get rescued. Yeah.
Percentage of food in general produced in the United States is tossed out?
40%
That's
of
what I
food,
heard,
created in the United States, be it grown, processed, what have you, is thrown out before it ever even reaches a consumer. So some of that is early in the process of, a field of tomatoes gets an insect infestation and has to get thrown out. But sometimes it's thrown out at the restaurant level, at the home level, but about 40% is thrown out before it even reaches the consumer. Yeah.
It names the grocery stores donate mainly bakery items, not the other. And there's a program in Polk County that takes the end of the day things from deli and come and go and so forth, But I don't think that exists in Iowa in general, at least.
Is that Eat Greater Des Moines that you're talking about?
Yes.
Yes. So Eat Greater Des Moines does have some counterparts in other communities. I don't believe Ames has something like that. There's a very large food rescue over in southeast Iowa called Table to Table that operates much like Eat Greater Des Moines, but is quite a bit larger in scale. There's also a food rescue in the greater Scott County area, but those are great models to rescue that prepared food. Even a banquet center like the Memorial Union on campus at Iowa State, if let's say they were going to be having a wedding and they made 10 pans of lasagna and only 8 of them got served, and they've got 2 big buffet pans of lasagna that never even got put out, they could freeze those solid and donate them through an agency like Eat Greater Des Moines or Table to Table, and they could be at a shelter, the next day. So those are super valuable agencies when they can operate in a community.
How do you get more of those going?
I'd say the big question is funding. They operate solely on grants and donations, so it really takes a lot of community support to get them going. And a lot of them are entirely volunteer run. So Eat Greater Des Moines has 3 staff that are paid through grants, and they have their drivers all over the community that are all volunteers. My parents are volunteer drivers for Table to Table over in Iowa City, and they've got about 30 counterparts who are mostly University of Iowa students and retired people like them who drive routes for Table to Table once a week. So it takes a large community effort to get it going. Eat Greater Des Moines has been around, I think, for maybe 7-8 years. Table to Table's been around for about 30 years. It's kind of the grandfather of food rescue in Iowa.
From the standpoint of education of people who might benefit from knowledge regarding the usage of cost-effective foods, have you made any effort to identify these people at the site of the food pantries, for example?
Yes, so we have done some recruitment at food pantries. I don't know, Nicole, if you want to speak about here in Story County, if you've had experiences directly at food pantries.
Yeah, so there's quite a few food pantries I will go and recruit at. A lot of times I just go during their food pantry hours, and as people are waiting, I'll talk with a lot of people about the 2 different programs that I teach. So quite often I'll come out with a few people interested. Mm-hmm.
And another thing we might share on that topic is we do have 2 staff who are on the east and west edges of the state, so they're not here with us today, but they're healthy food access specialists, and their job is to coach food pantries on making healthy choices as easy as possible for clients who shop at that pantry. So whether that's shelf labeling, whether it's the order in which people encounter foods as they move through the pantry, or whether it's providing classes to interested folks who come to that food pantry. They're in the Council Bluffs area and the Iowa City area, and that's most of what they do. So they really try to recruit from that food pantry audience. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Okay, well, thanks, everybody.